Noswaith da pawb, Cynghorydd Mike Priestley dwi. Good evening. My name is Councillor Mike Priestley and I am the chair of the Economy and Place Overview Scrutiny Committee. Can I welcome everyone to the meeting, which is a hybrid meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the council's website following the conclusion of this meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and for those attending on Zoom to choose the language of your choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and on Zoom. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, please pop a message in the chat function so that Democratic Services Officer is aware, and please let us know when you have returned. I expect everyone present to participate in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other, and that applies to members, officers, and the public gallery. So with that put to one side, if I could just go into item number 1, which is apologies for absence.
Thanks, Chair. I've had apologies from Councillor Gail Jones and Keith Eales.
Yep.
Dwi'n siarad Cymraeg. Mae gen I cyfarfod arall am hanner awr wedi 7. Felly rhaid I mi adael cynna 4 wedi 7, please.
Yeah, diolch. I won't give times on. I'm not going to give times on what time this meeting will finish. But dare I say it's not a hefty agenda, but diolch yn fawr. Item 2, declarations of interest, code of local government conduct. And can I remind members that they must declare what the nature of their declared personal interest is? No. Urgent matters. Item 3, no urgent matters. Okay, so we go on to item 4, which is the minutes of and to approve and sign the correct record of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 24th of May, and they're pages 4 to 9. I don't intend to go through each page, but if anybody's got any issues with the minutes, we okay online? Yeah, Councillor Chris Hughes.
I'm just going to move the minutes as a correct record, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris. So that's a proposer. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes. Can I see a show of hands to support that? Yeah. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So item 5, we're going well. Review the work programme, and I'll hand over to Dawn to go through basically item 5, 1 and 2. You take them together, will you? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. So for the purpose of the live stream, I'm Dawn Hughes, the Scrutiny and Committee Services Officer for Conway. So can I just advise members of a few changes? So you have a special meeting on the 17th of October to consider the proposed public open spaces dog control order for 2023. And also there'll be an annual report on the section 106 monies. I think Councillor Mandy is keen to see that one. Also, I'm in the process of scheduling dates for the LDP report, which will probably result in some special meetings needing to be organised in order to get the deposit LDP to council in May. So that's my update, Chair.
Okay, anybody, any issues with that? No, again, could I ask for a proposer and a seconder on that, please? Michael, thank you. Seconder, please, online. Sorry, I can't see that. Carol, yeah, I've got Carol. Okay, second. And all those in favour? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you very much. So we go on to question item 6, which is question to cabinet members.
There are no questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is item 7, and that's to receive a petition from Brenda is going to come down and present a petition to Dawn, and then Brenda, you can speak. You have 5 minutes to speak on that petition, and then I'll open it up for some questions on the content of your speech.
Chairman.
When you're ready, Brenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for letting us bring this petition of the West Shore sand problem to your notice. I am Brenda Irving, and in the chamber is Barbara Sandbach. We are both residents and ex-hoteliers of the West Shore and began the petition this summer together. No doubt you have read what we are asking for. Reading the petition heading itself is self-explanatory. Photographs have been provided. We do feel very strongly about this problem. Having spoken to numerous visitors, locals, residential people who live alongside the West Parade, plus regular visitors who just love the West Shore, the views, the mountains, sea, and magnificent sunsets. The neglect of many areas is now very evident. Please do not let this get worse. Windblown sand is blocking waterways, walkways, paths either side of the sea wall. The path off the seaside areas of the wall are unpassable for many users. It is impossible for families with prams, the invalids in walk chairs, many walkers using walking aids. All these, of course, like to be near the sea and the sands. No clearance has been made for many months. We have noticed this regularly throughout the summer. Windblown sand is now prominent in all areas of the promenade, settling underfoot of almost all the benches, where now weeds are growing permanently in the sand, where dogs urinate, making unhealthy smelling and seating unattractive and neglected. People have spent pounds placing these memorial benches to respect their deceased loved ones. They all have a look of neglect. This surely needs attention quickly. The disabled ramp, built adjacent to the boating lake, used by most going along the whole promenade walk, this is constantly covered with sand, making it very hard for wheelchairs, walking aids, pushchairs, and the like. Friends of the West Shore do try timelessly to brush and clear pathways. This, of course, is not their job, and we should remember that they, us, mostly are older retired adults who try in many ways to keep the West Shore tidy. The boating lake, a vast area, a pleasure normally to sit by. This was never cleaned satisfactorily from the beginning of the year. Consequently, sand deposits were there to start. The almost stagnant water are now a health hazard, usually regularly by gulls, their chicks and other birds, which is now a mass of water contaminated and never cleaned. This is used by young children and is capable of transmitting disease. This, we must agree, is worrying. Must mention the promenade lighting. These lampposts have never seen paint in years. From the bases upwards, they are rusted through to the ironwork. I personally fought for these lights to be put back on in the late 1980s. The then chief executive, Mr. Hughes, got the new fittings for the tops put them on, rewired same. What a joy it was to have the promenade lit up on dark nights for people to stroll along after dinner and enjoy seeing where they were going. Having lived through the building of the sea defence groins in the 90s,
Brenda, you
we
have 30 seconds.
we have to conclude that there was not the problem of excess blown sand at the West Shore. Yes, the normal and accepted was encountered. New sand dunes having been placed to grow mid-beach and tollgate end of the beach. These certainly cause more sand being deposited around areas never affected beforehand. This is very true. Over the years, mistakes have been made. If this is so, let's get our act together and try and put it right. Another crucial observation.
Could I ask you to come to a conclusion, please?
Right. I'd just like to finish off then. We are very proud to live in this wonderful area, enjoy our regular visits on the West Shore, but we are so saddened to see the deterioration and neglect of this part of the Queen Resorts. Please, we urge you to consider this petition carefully and get West Shore looking as it should be. We do very much appreciate your time. Thank you for having us, Brenda and Barbara. Thank you.
Well, could I thank you, Brenda. I was a little bit lenient on the time. I did say I would be. Thank you very much for that. What I'll do now, I don't know if there's any clarity needed on what Brenda said there. So I can invite local members, possibly cabinet members or any officers to respond. Before I do, we go back a little distance, don't we? I had the cabinet position for the environment a few years ago, and my understanding then is when we cleared the sand, we would take it to, we'd get a license and we'd distribute it on the low water mark, and then at least it'd be washed and wet twice a day, and thus hopefully assisting with it, you know, not being blown back. My understanding at the moment, and officers may correct me, is that once a wind blown sands over the sea defence and on the roads is classed as detritus. So we can no longer just put that on the beach. So we'd have to look at that as detritus and dispose of it in that way. But I think you've made your point really well. And as I say, that petition will go, I will hand over to officers for that position and would expect them to get a response to you. So can I just say thank you very much for taking the time out and coming in here tonight, and yourself up there as well. So Barbara, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I can open, I'm not going to open up for a big debate, but I think it's only right that if anybody wants to, you know, cabinet members or officers want to respond to that, or if you want a little bit of time to respond to that, and then I'll just ask local members to say a few words. I can see Councillor Gronwy, cabinet member, has his hand up raised.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the notice of motion, not the motion, the petition. We will take it away and officers will respond appropriately in due course.
Okay, thank you very much. Louise?
Yeah, as I say, there's been a lot of debate about this over the years. To pick up the other points, putting the sand to one side about the poor quality lighting and some of the making the place look better with the benches, perhaps removing the benches. That's something which the Friends of West Shore have got in their vision statement, which we are bringing to our committee on Monday, our Friends of West Shore committee. And we've just applied for a shared prosperity fund grant, working with other friends groups up to £250,000. Even if we're not successful, we know how to do this now. So the group have got lots of plans to start leading on big money, because we appreciate the money's just not in the kitty. We need to get it from elsewhere. And in terms of windblown sand, it's a request that myself and Harry and obviously now Mandy have always been asking. We know the limitations of that, but as I say, it's not just about sand on the roads. When it goes down into the houses, it gets into people's boilers and doors, etc. And there's a massive change since we put the fish groin, the groins in. Right. Got rid of the groins and put the fish tails in. So I really hope you can consider more frequent collection. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you. Councillor Harry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm not a member for committee, but I'll speak very briefly. Though I think, in all fairness, Louise has probably said an awful lot of what I was going to say. But it's an issue that I know certainly I've raised repeatedly with officers and with cabinet, both. I say both this administration and the previous. I think every administration that's been in place since I've been a member of this council. I think most people would accept there probably isn't a silver bullet to deal with the problem of windblown sand. I think most people also understand the financial pressures that the council is facing. But I think there's definitely very real merit, and I was really pleased to hear Gronwy say that officers would go and consider it. I think that's the ask at the moment, that people, or that the council looks at this seriously, considers it, comes back to councillors and says, this is maybe what we can do to improve the situation. As I've said, there may not be a perfect solution, but some help would be greatly appreciated. And I know I've made the point, and Louise has, that we've raised this repeatedly over the years. But I think the petition today actually demonstrates that there is a significant amount of public feeling around this. So really, really pleased that officers and cabinet will go away and look at it. Be really interested to know what comes back in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. I could see Mandy online. Yeah, Councillor Mandy. You're on mute, Councillor.
Sorry about that. Obviously, being a councillor of the ward, also, I'm really interested to see what the officers' suggestions are, and to come back with this, because we know it's something that's been, around, as both Harry and Louise have said, for many years, through different administrations, and obviously we have got, concerns with funding, and what have you now. But yeah, really just keep us involved as local members, and let's see if there's a way forward, with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. In the chamber, I have Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Llandudno, very much like town in Kimmel Bay, is a large tourist area. The town council works well with our ERF department and open spaces department, painting and beautifying railings and benches and such. So it may be something that Llandudno Town Council could perhaps look at working in partnership with county. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. I mean, it looks good that the fact that you've got the Friends group, and I think working together with town and county council could really make a good difference. And I'd just say, on your grant application, good luck, pop luck, and hopefully that would be successful and could make a real significant difference in the area. So I can't see any other speakers at the moment. So, Councillor Caffi.
Thank you, Chair. Just to ask that response from officers be shared with all of us here at this meeting, please, or on this committee.
What was sorry, Caffi, I didn't catch that. You wanted a response?
Yeah, will the response from officers be shared with everyone on this committee?
Yeah, that can be arranged. Yeah. I think
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. So I'll move on then. Again, Brenda and Barbara, the work that you've done there to highlight this issue, I'd like to say thank you, and you'll obviously get a response accordingly. Okay, thank you very much. So we go to item 8 now, which is the biodiversity and resilience ecosystems delivery plan. Do I have who's going to introduce this? So I'll get so Councillor Gronwy Edwards as cabinet member, if you could introduce that, and then hand over to officers.
Gronwy, can you put your microphone on, please?
You can you hear me now? Yeah,
thank you.
The Environmental Wales Act 2016 places a legal duty on public bodies to maintain and enhance biodiversity and resilience of the ecostream. Under Section 6 of the Act, every public authority must publish a plan as to how it intends to meet this requirement and publish a report on its progress in delivering the action plan. And a lot of work has gone into this. We've got Andrew Simon and Sophie. I know Sophie's put an awful lot of work into it, and I think I'll hand over to Sophie, who I think is going to go through this plan, and hopefully scrutiny will endorse the plan.
Okay, so if I could hand over to Sophie Birchall-Rogerson, then if you could go through the report for the scrutiny committee, please.
Okay, thanks, councillor. I won't go through the plan word for word today, as I'm assuming everybody's had a chance to read through it already, but I will try and briefly summarise the plan and how it's set out. So section 1 of the plan explains its purpose, which is to document the council's commitment across its services in protecting and enhancing biodiversity, whilst also reducing or reversing its decline. The plan describes how the council aims to meet its duties and documents the methods used to ensure that actions are being appropriately monitored and managed. It provides an overview of biodiversity, acknowledging that biodiversity is the planet's life support system, and quite simply that the human race cannot survive without biodiversity. It goes on to describe how, unfortunately, us as humans, as a species, are causing biodiversity to decline as a direct result of human impacts, including habitat loss. The section of the plan also tries to make it clear that habitat degradation threatens our most basic necessity, this being a healthy environment to live and thrive in. Moving on to section 2 of the plan, this explains legislation, legal frameworks and national plans and policies which support the requirement for implementing this plan, including, as Councillor Gronwy touched on earlier, the Environment Wales Act, which puts the legal duty on public bodies to maintain and enhance biodiversity. And under section 6 of this act, just to make it clear, but every public authority must publish a plan as to how it intends to meet this requirement, and also publish a report on its progress in delivering the actions set out within the plan. The plan also explains how during 2022, the Welsh Government undertook a biodiversity deep dive to develop a set of collective actions for Wales to support nature's recovery. A 30 by 30 target was chosen as a strategic focus for the purpose of the deep dive, to consider where and how action could be accelerated. These key themes include, I'm not going to go through them all, transforming our protected sites, making them better, bigger and more effectively connected, and building strong foundations for future delivery through capacity building, behaviour change, awareness raising and skills development. And importantly, these key themes targeted the requirement for strategic leadership in tackling nature recovery. The plan also goes on further to describe the links between global frameworks, corporate policy and other relevant legislation, such as how nature and our nature resources support the 7 wellbeing goals of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. Moving on to section 3, the report explains how Conwy County's biodiversity is rich. We live in a beautiful place and have a wonderful, varied natural ecosystem with a range of habitats from grasslands to woodlands to streams and rivers and coastal habitats. And importantly, acknowledges that biodiversity of Conway's natural environment underpins 2 key areas of Conway's economy, agriculture and tourism. Finally, section 4 of the plan is an action plan. The action plan has been designed to follow the key themes, legislative frameworks and recommendations for specific actions outlined in section 2 of the report, whilst also targeting the wide range of biodiversity actions that are not only representative, but also achievable across Conway's local biodiversity needs. As to be honest, we have to be realistic and set achievable goals given the current economic climate. So the action plan in section 4 of the plan has 6 themes for delivery as follows. Theme 1, corporate issues, policies and plans. Theme 2 is site management and species protection. Theme 3 is habitat improvement on and across the Conway estate. The 4th theme is use and development of biodiversity data. The 5th theme is awareness, education and advice. And finally, the 6th theme is how we can work with the local community. Under each of those themes are various targeted actions, far too many for me to go through now, but they range from actions such as ensuring that biodiversity conservation is embedded as a core component of Conway's environmental policy, to ensuring the management of CCBC land maintains and enhances the extent, condition and connectivity of the semi-natural habitats and species of conservation concern. It supports and contributes to Welsh and local priorities. There are actions set around raising awareness. As an example, one of the actions we've put in there is ensuring that our staff undertake mandatory biodiversity safeguarding training every 3 years, to also more policy related actions such as the implementation of a strategic tree policy, and finally corporate actions such as considering declaring a nature emergency alongside climate change as the defining issues of our time and the greatest threat to our well-being both globally and locally. We already acknowledge climate change as a corporate priority, and it's important to recognise that we won't make net zero without nature recovery and nature-based solutions, as they go hand in hand, as nature is basically where all the carbon's locked. So thank you. Any questions? And happy to hand back over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. For that. I've got a couple of hands have been raised. So some questions coming from first Councillor Chris Hughes online.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report. It's an excellent report and an excellent plan. Our environment is sadly under attack from ourselves, and we probably didn't know it until a few years ago. I think it's really important that we protect our habitats and we recognise the impact that we're having as a community, worldwide community, on our environments. So I am delighted to propose that we accept this plan. However, I have had a number of conversations with Sophie since or an exchange of emails, I should say, since our pre-meeting. And one of the things that Sophie has indicated that she would really like to see as an option is that the council declare a climate emergency. And to that end, a notice of motion is to be presented to our next council meeting, requesting that council do consider the declaration of a nature emergency. In addition to that, Sophie has mentioned that she would like Cabinet to consider appointing a biodiversity champion who can champion biodiversity at all levels within the council. And I think that is an amendment I'd like to make to the recommendations, Chair. I'm happy to propose the two recommendations, 2.1 and 2.2, but with the third amendment that Cabinet consider appointing a biodiversity champion to aid the work of the biodiversity officers.
Okay, we'll look at that a little bit later on, Chris, but thank you very much for that. Next to speak is Councillor Sam Cotton.
Thank you, Chair. Can I firstly say welcome to the Chair, Councillor Mike, and thank you to Councillor Nigel for all his service to this committee previously. Right, okay, I'm looking at pages 91 and 92 in the report. It's objective 3. Firstly, the first question is the review of the grass cutting policy to reduce grass cutting operations and increase biodiversity. Is that something that is that policy change something that will come to scrutiny to be considered? And the second one is around, I've been admiring Chris and Carol's grass verges in Penrhyn Bay. They're lovely wildflowers, which I am aware have been a part of the promenade development. But if the developers can do that, can't we do a bit more of that around the county? I know I've mentioned this before, and I know that the plants that bees like and pollinators like aren't always the most attractive plants, but those verges were lovely. And I'm just wondering, I've got a lot of places where I could think that we could scatter lots of wildflower seeds for next summer, spring and summer. In fact, I do a bit of guerrilla planting myself in certain areas. So I'm just wondering if that's something that we can do. And thirdly, I think we've already declared a climate emergency. I think that Aaron might have brought it to a previous council meeting, but I'm happy to second Councillor Chris's proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thank you very much for the congratulations. Flattery will get you everywhere. I think Cabinet Member Gronwy Edwards would like to come in response to that.
The topic of rewilding, and I know Sophie's been very active in looking at grant funding for rewilding and planting, sort of wild areas of our verges within the county. I think Sophie can enlarge on that. There's a grant application that she's been working on for some time now.
Hi, yes, we are we're working on a series of grant applications using grant applications through sources like Local Places for Nature funding. One of the projects we've secured funding for this year, which I was about to hopefully soon imminently send a member briefing out for, is to look at a pollinator roundabouts project as well. So we've managed to secure grant funding to transform a lot of the highway roundabouts across the network, to reduce non-native invasive species and turn them into beautiful, bright coloured wildflower roundabouts in the interest of biodiversity. Again, with reference to the grass cutting, we're looking at areas, verges where we can actually, have wildflower seeds and reduce that. Simon, do you want to come in there with that particular bit?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and biodiversity areas they're like Marmite. Some people love them. Some people see them as an excuse that the council rolls out when we're trying to reduce what they consider to be the services that they deserve. A biodiversity site doesn't develop into a wildflower meadow overnight. There's a lot of hard work that goes into creation of wildflower meadows. We would ideally, given that we have many different hats, on the one hat we want to cut the grass, and we've been trained for many generations now that a well-maintained lawn is the best type of lawn. We need to change the mindset. I think the plan that Sophie has put together, it certainly gives us a very positive start towards changing people's mindsets, so that we've also got a reference point back when we do inevitably get the complaints around sort of, why are we not cutting this piece of grass anymore? But that also needs to be in conjunction with proper maintenance plans for the biodiversity sites, making sure that we cut them at the right times of year, making sure that we cut them in the right way, making sure that we can collect the cuttings, because otherwise we'll have nitrogen-rich soil, which creates sort of overgrowth and the wrong type of grass species to establish. So yeah, there are many different facets that we are working towards ensuring that we have a more sympathetic grass cutting regime.
Thank you very much for that. Quickly, Sam, did you want to come back before I move on to some other questions?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, very, very quickly. As it happens, there was something on the radio this morning, and I can't remember what the policy was called. Sophie's just mentioned about roundabouts. But they were saying one of the barriers to that is the expense at applying for the traffic regulations that would allow rewilding or wilding to be carried out on roundabouts. That's just something I wanted to mention.
Yeah, and I'm getting nods of acknowledgement from the officers regarding that. So I've got Simon Croft, Kathy Augustine, Nigel Smith, and Ros. Simon Croft next.
Yep, thank you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned. Looking through the document, I see mention of a woods policy that needs to catalogue all the woodlands and everything. And having a big woodland in my ward, Pwyllgor, I notice it was also not mentioned the benefit of residents, the tourists and farmers, but the residents weren't mentioned that it would be a big benefit to them. I'm concerned that these policies do not actually come back to this committee for approval. I hope they do when they are arrived at. I've particularly had some issues in Pwyllgor with the Ponticum police, who actually purged the entire place of all rhododendrons, including the ones that have been planted by the Lady Bamber's gardeners over the years. And I noticed a rather lovely picture of the woods as they used to be, which is down in the old town hall on Rue Road, in the back room. And it used to be a rather beautiful place, and now it's just green with no colour whatsoever, since everything got purged from it a number of years ago. I don't really want to have that happen again. Another question that it also mentioned setting up a countryside team. I thought we already had one. And the other issue I wanted to ask was biodiversity training is to be mandated for whom in the council? I was just wondering if that was not going to be council wide. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, do you want to take some of them questions?
Yeah, so in terms of the mandatory training, what we would specifically like to focus on, bearing in mind that this is going to be the first, or well, actually, this is the second of what will be a multi-phase approach. So we're looking at the mandatory training for our frontline operatives. So those sort of largely within sort of the open spaces service. We talk about biodiversity, but you know, what do we truly know about it, and how are we confident that everybody is, you know, for want of a or you know, I don't want to speak in cliches, but singing from the same hymn sheet. You know, we don't necessarily know that all of our staff are fully engaged and understand the importance of biodiversity, because if they are not fully aware and fully engaged in what biodiversity is, then you know, how are they going to champion it when sort of challenged by residents as to our grass cutting regime, because clearly we don't want to provide contradictory information. In relation to the countryside team, that there isn't necessarily an established countryside teams. There is a countryside warden and a Great Orme warden, but we don't have a team. It's a function that has been largely absorbed into other service areas, but we think given the unique situation that we find ourselves in, particularly when funding is being directed from Welsh Government towards nature-based solutions, that it's probably an opportune time to make sure that we've got the right structure in place with sufficient succession management as well, so that we're resilient going forward, not having to pile additional work onto an already under-resourced team.
Okay, thank you for that, Simon. Going back to some more questions there, I've got Councillor Kathy Augustine.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Aron was before me, but I will continue. Thank you, Simon, for your comments. They touched really on what I was going to ask about the communication around this, because yes, there are people who love to see wildflower verges, and there are other people who want them all neatly trimmed twice a year. Also, the training I very much welcome. I had a ward walk around Parc Plas Mawr in Penmynon recently, We also have a biodiversity garden just by the Puffin roundabout, and both had been absolutely blitzed with weed killer. We have subsequently had conversations with open spaces. They're going to approach that in a different way, but this sort of training is therefore very welcome. So it's really around the comms and the training, and also working with parts of the council. So tomorrow morning, a number of us here will attend the Climate Challenge Programme Board. I'm assuming that part of this work will feed into what we can on that programme board, because all these things are intertwined rather than looked at in silos. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. I do thank you, Kathy. I've got I've listed councillors as they've made themselves aware to me that they wish to ask a question and speak. Next, I have Councillor Nigel Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Well, I think on page 81, it recognises the biodiversity that we have throughout our county. But like my predecessor in Vice Chair, Councillor Sam, my eagle eyes hit on page 91E1, the review of grass cutting policy to reduce grass cutting operations and increase biodiversity. This has been a bit of a hot potato in our neighbouring authority, Denbighshire. I think even included the MP getting involved. I think we need to be mindful of where these proposed new biodiversity areas may be when we stop cutting the grass there, and have proper communication with the elected members. I don't think one size fits all. And as a tourist destination, we need to be very mindful of that. We're not leaving our grassed areas to look untidy and unkept. I presume that maintenance of biodiversity areas is not actually maintenance free. It will have some cost to it. And I'm just mindful of the fact I wouldn't want it to affect the economy of our tourist trade in the county. I also want to highlight the issue that town in Kimmel Bay, I think, is renowned for having the least amount of trees in the whole of Wales. And the town council has been trying to plant trees, but recently we were turned down planting trees on a bare street with grass verges, which I think would have seriously enhanced the area, give a better amenity for the residents, and give them a far improved place, not only just for their physical well-being, but also for their mental well-being. And I was a bit disappointed to hear that we had that request turned down. But I will take it up with officers when I get 5 minutes spare. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Did you want to come? I'll just move on to some more questions if that's all right, and if we can get through this this agenda. So I've got Councillor Ros Griffith Williams online.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think that Aaron was before me. I don't know if Aaron wants to come in.
Do you know? I don't know what I've got. Aaron next. I'm writing down as I say. So I'm
If
sure
Aaron's
Aaron,
happy for me to go, I'll.
Yeah, I'm happy for you to go. And Aaron, you will be next.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Go for it, Ross.
Deal. Yeah, I'd just like to say that first of all, I fully support declaring a nature emergency. I do think that's something that is really important that we bring forward to council. I've got several questions or several points, and I am quite happy if you want to note these down, and I will take responses back to these via email just so that we can move on in the agenda. I think the first thing that I'd like to ask is, are we on target for preserving 30%? And is that the minimum that we're going for, or are we going to be more ambitious in preserving more than just 30% of our nature and wildlife biodiversity areas? Also, in relation to the grass cutting and the enhancement of biodiversity, I do think that this comes down to educating. residents. I know that recently we've sent out information on recycling where we're trying to make sure that everybody's recycling. So, you know, is there a programme there where we can spread communication that we do actually need to enhance our biodiversity in order to mitigate climate change? And as has been said before, there are areas within my ward as well that could definitely be improved with planting. And can we work with organisations such as Welsh Water? We've got a pumping station that's recently been put up in Abergele, which is just completely concrete. There's no planting around it. And I'd also, if possible, just like some clarification on the tree policy and who I can contact about Swift boxes as well, because I did try and get some Swift boxes up where I work in the summer, and I'm not 100% sure if that's actually, you know, come to fruition. So thank you. I know it's a few points there, but thank you.
I think officers would like to come back on some of those points. And I was going to say, Ros, that obviously this will go to Cabinet, so you'd need to be satisfied that you're getting those answers before, you know, it goes through Cabinet and whatever decisions come from Cabinet. So obviously I'd let officers come back now, and anything outstanding, perhaps we can get an email to you. And all I would say there is make sure that you're content with the response, and if not, you could possibly bring that up in front of Cabinet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll hand over to, is it Simon going to take? Okay.
Yeah, just Sophie will come in, I know, but just in relation to the grass cutting, we're committed to reviewing grass cutting. We're not saying that, you know, that there's going to be wholesale changes. The review will include those affected by any change. So we would look to be liaising with sort of local county councillors. We want to liaise with the town and community council as well. We've seen ourselves sort of the knots you can tie yourself up in if you don't do things properly by sort of experiences in neighbouring authorities. So yeah, it's by no means a done deal. What we can't say is that everybody will be happy, you know, because it is such a polarized subject anyway. But we will hope to do generally what's right for a particular area, and hope that with the management, and you're right, Councillor Nigel, it's not about sort of slashing budgets. There's a cost. Sometimes the cost is greater, you know, but doing the right thing sometimes you can't really put a value on that. Yeah, so Sophie, I know in terms of some of the other questions.
Yeah, I think as well, obviously the action plan and the actions which are in there, the things what we want to explore, you know, committing to exploring over the course of the plan between 2023 to 2026. Also, in terms of areas for planting, you know, we will be looking into that further. I did mention before about, you know, one of the actions in there will be to have a long-term tree strategy as well, which will look into things like planting up. And yes, looking at friends groups, communities, volunteers, third parties, you know, that is part and parcel of what the team are trying to do now. You're building a resilient team and looking at who we can engage with. Also, in terms of Swift boxes as well, we've recently had a Swift box, a Swift project through Local Places for Nature funding. So I'll find out what we've got left and what's available from our ecologist, Kate, and come back to you with that. And I'll come back to you on the 30 by 30 target with an email, if that's okay.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you for the responses there. I'm not ignoring it's Councillor Aaron. You know, yeah, I wrote it in order, but there you go. Maybe I'll have to work on them writing skills. Councillor Aaron.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd, noswaith dda bawb. Dwi just isio cadarnhau mi ddos i rhybudd o gynnig i'r cyngor nôl ym mis Mai 2019 yn datgan argyfwng hinsawdd ac argyfwng natur, a mi ddaru rhybudd o gynnig hwnnw gael ei gefnogi yn frydol gan y cyngor. a dwi'n ama mai ni oedd y cyngor cyntaf i wneud yng Nghymru, felly mae hwnnw wedi wneud yn barod. Diolch.
Sophie?
Am I okay? Sorry. Am I okay to respond back here? No, we have declared a climate emergency, but we didn't declare a nature emergency. So the two aren't actually connected together as it stands at the moment.
And that's in the report. I've seen that where we have declared, and opposite that is where we haven't, which is, I believe, is probably going to be part of the notice of motion that will go to council from Councillor Chris Hughes, if that's my understanding. Okay, Councillor Paul, thank you for being patient.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair, and welcome to the Chair. And thanks to Nigel for all his work over the years as well. How many triple SSIs have we in Conway? The reason I ask that question is we have a very vulnerable triple SI in running from Tickrun to Pensarn Promenade. I'm a reluctant pragmatist on this because of climate change, because of severe weather events, because of sea levels. This triple SSI is eroding quickly and will be eroded. I don't think we can stop it. But the reason I ask that question is because we have looked at some beach management plans and possible funding to deal with it. But moving on from that sort of parochial issue in my ward, it does concern me that we do map all our SSIs, and maybe we can then save some of them over the next decades. So I just like officers' thoughts on where we're up to on that. I think the other thing that really concerns me about this action plan is it's not costed, and it needs to be costed, and it needs to be in the medium-term financial strategy. Otherwise, it feels to me having an action plan is a bit, it's the right thing to do, but if we don't cost it and then prioritize it against the other demands on our resources, it is fairly meaningless, I would say. And the third point, and Simon's already acknowledged this, we did actually plant a really nice wild meadow at the western end of Pentramour Park a few years ago. Alan and Charlie will remember this. And sadly, what happened was those operatives who cut the grass, they managed to cut it at the wrong time of the year and obviously to the wrong levels. So after enjoying it for probably maybe a couple of seasons, it was destroyed by the cutting regime. And that's not a criticism of those people, but obviously we do need to have a communication strategy. And again, the mapping of where these things are, because otherwise these sort of unforeseen circumstances happen.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And I think that's where the training would be really useful for especially if we got new members of staff coming in, etc. Understanding what you're doing. Sophie, I know, is working really hard on funding around grants, etc. to assist in this. But did you want to come back on? Or sorry?
Yeah, just in relation to the financial aspects of the plan. A lot of the actions are not necessarily going to incur additional costs. They're more about reviewing our internal processes in order that we focus, like we rightly do in sort of Future Generations Act, that we also take due account of the impact that any new plans, policies, procedures will have in terms of biodiversity and the decline in nature. it's not it's not a nice to do, it's a statutory function. You know, ultimately we have produced this plan because the laws that the Welsh government have passed have told us that we've got to have a plan, and so we try to be as realistic and as pragmatic as possible in terms of what we think can go into the plan, whilst also taking account of to a certain extent the affordability of the actions that we're proposing. You know, we could have gone really off script and, you know, put in massively expensive proposals, but realistically, you know, we would be presenting an update report and an end report in 2026 that is you know, showing that we're failing in what we want to do. In relation to the grass cutting, totally right. We need to get the communications right. We need to get communication right internally as well as externally, and the training will certainly help us with that. In relation to T-Cron, I know Sophie's got an update on where we're up to with that site as well.
Yeah, so where we've got up to, we've had a bit of good news over the last few weeks. We've managed to secure some grant funding to have a feasibility study undertaken to look at the possible options there. So we've secured grant funding through Local Places for Nature. So we're just currently working on that and working out obviously getting a feasibility study in place. As Simon said before, just touching on a few other points, the action plan, it's not generic, it's not specific to individual sites, it's a high level plan. A lot of the stuff, yes, it's not going to be additional cost. A lot of things we won't be able to cost. One of the examples which touches on to one of the other points about mapping, NRW, National Resources Wales, have mapped, responsible for mapping all SSSIs. We have those on our own council systems or maps at Conway as well, which everyone has access to. And one of the actions in the plan is about raising awareness, educating our staff about biodiversity. You've hit the nail on the head there, Joe, with a suggestion of, are we using this data ourselves? And that's part and parcel of what's incorporated, just one element of the biodiversity training. This information's there, you should be looking at it. And that is exactly why we need, you know what, all officers levels, you know, letting them know what's there, what information's available, just as one part of it. Many SSSIs, I don't know the exact number of council maintained and non-council maintained off the top of my head, can come back to you, but we do have you know, we do have sites there, they're currently mapped. One of the other actions in the action plan, as well as the SSSIs, I've got an action in there to map all of our bio sites. I know that's cropped up a couple of times, and we're looking at getting those published and put on the website as well. They've all been mapped, and I'm hoping to get that out there so everyone in the public can see where they are and we can raise awareness. Thanks.
Okay,
thank you. That's good. That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Cabinet members want to come in quickly before I bring Louise in.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, and Jeff can as well. Sophie's touched on the SSSIs, a designation in Wales by Natural Resources Wales. The map is on their website. I'm looking at it now. So that information is available. We're mindful of the SSSIs that fall within our ownership, of course, but at the end of the day, Natural Resources Wales is the governing body or the management body for triple SSIs.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, did you want to come in quickly?
Yes, very quickly, Chair. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say, in fact, that this document sets the seed, I like to say, for discussion. And tonight's been very much that case, and it's delightful to hear as what's going on. I mean, it's been diverse, and in fact, you've encompassed an awful lot of detail there, for which I know Sophie, and having known Sophie for some time, will take that detail down and put it into document. I mean, this is something that I feel it should be embedded with every daily activity we have. And this has raised the profile, this discussion in itself. I welcome the document. I applaud the staff behind it. And I really do think this is a great piece of work. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got one question about the key themes and recommendations, which is on the unlock private investment to deliver for nature at a far greater scale and pace. So I'd like to know, give us an example of what that would be. And then I'm not going to rant too much, but it's great to declare a nature emergency and a climate emergency. But how many of us have taken a foreign holiday over the last 12 months? How many of us use our car when we could walk or use public transport? How many of us have bought a jumper in a fast fashion retail shop last week? You know, if we really do mean this, we can't just come and say yes and have a bit of virtue signaling. We've all got to make a sacrifice, and a proper sacrifice. We shouldn't even be having pets. There's a conversation about having pets. They're bad for the environment. So I will enjoy the conversation at full council, but I'm not just going to agree to I'll agree to the climate one. I'd forgotten about that, Aaron, as everyone else had. But what are we actually going to do ourselves individually that's a proper sacrifice to help the planet? What are we actually going to do? I'm off to the Canaries in 8 weeks. So actually, I feel bad. I can't vote for a nature emergency when I'm flying on a plane for a holiday. So, you know, anyway, we'll continue that rant at full council. So can I have the question about unlocking private investment? Give us an example of what that would mean and who would help us.
Anna,
Yeah,
you have
so
a lovely holiday.
That's largely related to where we have developments that occur within the county. So we have Section 106 funding, which is generally used to improve highway infrastructure. You know, so we say to people, yes, you can come and build here, but you need to give us X amount of money because we need to make sure that the roads are better in the area. What we also need to be doing is saying we also need to make sure that the environment's better in the area as well.
So it is S106. I thought it was kind of approaching businesses. I was thinking, how do we do that? Fine, S106.
Okay, thank you. I've just got my iPad out actually because I read this morning about the applications open for 9.8 million in new funding for restoring nature in Wales. I'm sure that's the sort of pots we'll be looking at. So okay, Councillor Liz online.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I don't know whether it's been covered earlier on, but my main roads are trunk roads, and I'm just wondering how closely what you are working with the trunk road officer for biodiversity, whose name evades me for the moment. I have done some work with him in the past, but I'd like to think that we could have a closer working relationship between ourselves and trunk road. In actual fact, I mean, I really support this paper because it is something that's very dear to my heart. And in actual fact, we had a meeting in Betws-y-Coed yesterday afternoon with one of your officers and an officer from the National Park and the Community Council. And it's about communities taking ownership of this as well, isn't it? And, we feel that now that we know that Conway are promoting it, so is National Park, NRW, we can bring those partners in and then we can bring in the community, because this isn't a one-off, is it? It's something we've got to keep working at. And also I want to work at how we know how bees are pollinators. And I'm just wondering how closely you are working with the Conway Beekeeping Society, because I intend to be working alongside a local beekeeper, because I think it's important to speak to them because they know what we need to plant in the area to help pollination, really. So I just wondered on that one about Trunk Road, and did I say another one? I can't remember what it was now, but of course we're hoping to get some funding to do this as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Liz. Yeah, so this isn't just a duty that's placed on Conway. It's a duty that's placed on all local authorities and also placed on Namucha, because Welsh governments are a highway authority as well. So there are a number of different peer groups who are looking at collaborative working across all of the North Wales authorities, including the trunk road, because as you say, they tend to be the bigger, busier roads. So that is happening, and we are looking at harmonising policy so that we don't have outliers, and that everybody is generally working in the same direction and doing the right thing.
The other one was the beekeeping, wasn't it, please?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned as well about the key being bringing everyone together. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to seek as much funding, grant funding as possible, working with the local communities, residents, local businesses, through the grant funding to achieve as much. We need your help and you need ours if we can apply for grants, do things. If anyone's got any suggestions for any ideas in the local communities which can do impact on the area, we're happy to take them all on board and see what's possible. Obviously, we can't do everything, but we will take ideas, and if you've got groups and volunteers, and projects, I'm happy to have further discussions on what's possible as well with the team and yourselves, like we have the meeting.
Look forward to that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so I have no more members wishing to speak on this issue. I think it's been a good debate, and I think it's fairly certain, there's a passion here around biodiversity and what have you. I just want to check. So I think Councillor Chris has proposed that we have a biodiversity champion. It's something that I took on when I was a cabinet member for environment, and it was under the Minister of Jane Davidson then, who was really passionate, and it really did support biodiversity and put it up at the front there. Can I just check with Councillor Sam Cotton? You seconded that proposal, Sam?
I did second that proposal. I think maybe the discussion about biodiversity champion, Harry will probably agree that maybe that needs to go to democratic services, if unless the cabinet members, that's going to come under his umbrella. And I think it's a nature. We're declaring, Councillor Chris, a nature emergency, because Councillor Allen clarified that we'd already had a climate emergency. So subject to that agreement, yes, I'm happy to second.
And can Chris just clarify that you've put a motion to council for that, Chris?
Yes, Chair. Following discussions that we had with Sophie and further discussions over the weekend, it was confirmed that we hadn't declared a nature emergency, and that I think it's important that we do have a nature emergency to run alongside the climate emergency. I think that some of the questions that have been asked today highlight how important, for example, the training is and things like that. But I also think, it's been mentioned about costs. I'm involved with an environment organisation, and we developed a reed bed, which cost several £1,000s. We planted orchards, we've planted hundreds of trees, and we've tried to rewild our Arias Park, which incidentally is actually 100 years old today. But I think that it is important that we do that. And the reason I didn't say that I was proposing that we have a biodiversity champion, but expressing a desire, asking Cabinet to consider the appointment of a biodiversity champion, is because I think it is for Cabinet to make that decision. And it may well be that it is the Cabinet member that takes that on board rather than it being another member. So yes, Chair, I'm more than happy to propose a recommendation with the amendment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chris. I've got Councillor Chris Cater that wants to come in just on what's been said there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing to speak. It's just about the champion, a new potential potential position that would be up to full council. And if you wanted to include that in a notice of motion, Councillor Chris, you could do that. If it goes to Democratic Services, it then becomes part of a report has to be put to Democratic Services, and then it comes back to full council. So I think I would have a word with Sian Branwen-Williams about how you do that with a notice of motion. Because that might be the simplest way if you want a biodiversity champion to be part of our setup in the future. All champions, unless they're sort of statutory and they're attached to cabinet member role, are appointed by the leader after consultation. So that just to give you some clarity on that, Chair. Thanks.
Could I ask Councillor Chris whether he would look at that? Because I think that would be perhaps the fastest, you know, that fast track. I mean, we've got 5, 6 cabinet members here tonight. You can hear that, you know, what's being said is that we want to look at a biodiversity champion. And perhaps if Chris could, I think council's on the 19th of October, if Chris put on the back of his motion that looking to create a biodiversity champion, and then
I'm more than happy to do that, Chair. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with Sian tomorrow.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thanks. And Councillor Sam as a seconder, are you okay with that? Fantastic. So basically what I've got in front of me now, members, is on page 66, we have the recommendations. I will read them out. It's that Economy and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee scrutinises the delivery plan and makes recommendations to Cabinet. And subject to consideration of Overview and Scrutiny Committee's recommendation, Cabinet approve the Biodiversity and Resilience Ecosystems, it's easy to say, isn't it? Ecosystems Delivery Plan for 2023 to 2026. Could I have a proposer for that? Chris, and seconded by Sam. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Online. Any abstaining? Or any of those against? That's unanimous. Sophie and Simon, you know, thank you very much for presenting that report. Obviously, it's created passionate debate, and, you know, I think we're really lucky to have you as officers in Conway. So thank you very much for the work that you do there. Okay, thank you. That's 8. So if we look at item 9 now, we're looking to consider reports from the Head of Service, Economy and Culture on the following matters. So this is the revised Conway destination plan for 2023 to 2029. You can see those on page 103 to 133, and I believe Cabinet Member Councillor Nigel Smith will present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, our officers in the Conway tourism team here at Conway County Borough Council have been working with the Destination Conway Partnership to revise the destination management plan. The previous plan was published in 2019, and many of the actions and objectives within the plan became outdated following the COVID-19 pandemic. The revised management plan provides an updated vision for tourism in our county, in line with other strategies that emerged as a result of the pandemic, such as the Gwynedd and Eryri Sustainable Visitor Economy Strategy 2035. Tourism is a priority sector for Conway County, and approval of this plan will show support from Conway County Borough Council for the tourism industry and its vision for tourism in the county for the next 6 years. My recommendation is that we support option 2 outlined on page 104 of the report to approve the revised Destination Conway Management Plan 2023 to 2029 to facilitate growth in the tourism sector and to show support for the Destination Conway Partnership and the wider tourism industry. I'm now going to call upon Jasmine Ryan, our Tourism and Regeneration Manager, who will take you through the report.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Nigel. So yeah, as Councillor Nigel has already alluded to, we've been working with the Destination Conway Partnership to revise the plan because the last one was outdated following the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time that happened, the 3-year term of office for the existing Destination Conway Partnership expired, and the structure of that partnership was reviewed and changed. The Destination Conway Partnership now consists of 5 different subgroups, so tourism businesses are provided with even more opportunities to get involved and can therefore focus on specific elements of the destination management plan in order to aid delivery. With the 2019 plan being out of date, the subgroups experienced a lot of frustration because there was an inability to progress ideas and aspirations within the tourism industry. it was decided that a new destination plan was required, and we needed to revise the plan and create new objectives. So as Councillor Nigel said, the revised plan provides an updated vision for tourism, and we have taken examples of good practice from our neighbours in Gwynedd and Eryri, from their Sustainable Visitor Strategy 2035. That was frequently cited as an example of good practice when we were revising the plan. So many of the principles within that strategy have been reflected in the Destination Conway Management Plan. Another key theme for the revised plan is sustainability and the importance of, of balancing the needs of residents with those of visitors. So the revised plan for Conway also aims to be one which puts Conway on a national and international stage, and is successful, dynamic and working together for the local community and businesses in order to deliver sustainable outcomes for the good of all. In order to achieve this, 11 objectives have been identified within the plan, and they were all listed within your packs. Tourism is a priority sector for Conway, so we've recently in the last few weeks received the 2022 STEAM figures, which shows the total economic impact of tourism to the county as 1.1 billion. This has now surpassed 2019 levels, where the total economic impact was 996 million. So there's a 10% increase on the figures in 2022. And the numbers of the visitor numbers, both staying and visitors, are now reaching the 2019 levels, which is a really good sign of growth and recovery from the pandemic. But we do need to make sure that we continue to support the industry so that it can continue to recover successfully from all the recent economic crises. So overall, the Destination Conway Management Plan expresses the views and beliefs of the tourism industry in Conway County. One of the strengths of the previous plan was that it was written and therefore supported by the trade. So we wanted to continue working in this way and felt it was really important that we followed the same process when we revised this plan. So as Nigel said, approval of this plan would show support from Conway County Borough Council for the tourism industry and its vision for tourism in the county for the next 6 years, 2023 to 2029. And yeah, as outlined in option 2 on page 105 of your packs, we are now looking for approval of this revised destination management plan.
Okay, any questions, members? I have Louise.
Great to see we've got the plan together because it's taken some time, and as I say, we're all a bit depressed after the pandemic, but the industry is coming back, and it was a bit crazy after the pandemic. It was almost too busy, wasn't it? So we're getting back to normality. Great to have Councillor Nigel. I know you're a big promoter of tourism. You understand how important it is in my patch and in your patch, most definitely. So that's great, and obviously this leads on to, in my area, the regeneration plan for Llandudno, but stuff in that relates to not just improving the amenities, but visitors are fussier than they've ever been. So they want super fast Wi-Fi, they want decent rooms, they want different change of accommodation. They don't tend to go to B&Bs as much now. They the self-catering, that's an issue with housing locally, etc. Workforce issues is important. Adam Williams, the pier owner, tells me he has to hire a bus on a Sunday to get his workers home because there's no way of getting them home. So yes, the plans we've got for Llandudno and the cross county, it's not just about for the visitor, it's also about the resident and the workforce. And I think that's important for it to work. So yeah, great plan. Let's get it through and get back to working regularly with the industry. Thanks, Jasmine.
Okay, Councillor Chris Hughes online.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I had some involvement in the original steering group, and I know that the partnership has worked really well over the years. And as we all know, as Councillor Louise mentioned before, tourism is now a major industry in Conway and is essential to the economic well-being of our county. I'm delighted. I want to propose option 2, the preferred option. But I do sound a word of caution. I certainly recognise that Llandudno, Conway, and to a lesser degree Betws y Coed remain our tourism honeypots. But with the economy of the county as a whole now so reliant on tourism, we must not forget our towns and communities like Llanrwst, like Kemmel Bay, Abergele, and of course my own ward in Colwyn Bay, which sadly, after a period of relative growth between 2012 and 2017, has seen has since declined and is again the most deprived community in Conway and the 19th most deprived community in the whole of Wales.
Okay, thank you for that, Chris. I have the leader, Councillor Charlie McCoubry, would like to come in now.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to offer my thanks to the officers for it's a really excellent piece of work, working with the tourism sector. You can see the amount of businesses that engage, and it's what we should be doing as an authority, is working with our other partners. Sustainable tourism is incredibly important. We've seen the figures drop from just short of $1 billion. It's dropped about 20% over the last couple of years. Obviously, we've got a cost of living crisis, but it's absolutely clear you can't sit still. And, there are competitors out there, and we need to push hard in that market. You can see from the figures how important overnight spend is in terms of the ratio of spend and what they bring in to the county. I've been lucky enough to live here for 34 years now. We live in a stunning part of the world, but there's still work to do. I had a cousin came over from Ireland. I did the little tour of Conway, as you do, and he said to me, "Why does nobody know about this place? This place is absolutely stunning. It's amazing." So there is work to do, but clearly working alongside the industry, extending the season, making those jobs better paid, more sustainable. That improves the experience for the people who come here. We've got a very exciting tourism talent network as part of the Economic Ambition Board, which will be based in Llandrith and Ross. That's up to the outline business case. So that, again, is all about improving the offer, making it somewhere people don't just rely on the weather to come, an all-year destination, celebrating our culture, our language, and our food. And I think this document will go a long way to consolidating that. So thank you all.
Is any other speakers on this issue? I can't see any, no hands raised. Okay, so I also would like to thank Sarah, Ellen, and Jasmine regarding the work that you've done here. And as Louise says, it's about it's about supporting the industry and getting back on track. So on this one, we can see on page 104. I think Chris, I need. Did we get the proposer? We haven't had the second, so Councillor Louise will second that. I think option 2 is actually the recommendation 2.2. I can see. So that's just to be clear. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Any abstentions? Against? That's unanimous. So I think we're going to give Cabinet a bit of an easy ride with some of these reports. But I would say they're so well written and easy to go through that basically that's what gets the comments from scrutiny. So well done, everybody, and you're making my inaugural chairmanship meeting quite easy, so he says tongue in cheek. Okay, so I think we come up to the last item on the agenda, which is the Llandudno 10-year regeneration plan. You can see these. You can see this on pages 134 to 266. I believe Councillor Nigel, Cabinet Member for Sustainable Economy, and will introduce this report, and then I'll let you hand over to officers, Nigel. So if you could introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Welsh Government has advised that in order for authorities to attract future funding, all towns would need to have either a place plan or place making plan or a regeneration plan. Llandudno has opted for a regeneration plan. The reason the regeneration plan was chosen for Llandudno opposed to a place making plan is that regeneration plans focus on economic investment to support growth, whereas place plans contain community proposals for land development. Much of the land in Llandudno has already been developed, but is underused and therefore requires economic investment opposed to planning developments. The Llandudno 10-year regeneration plan was finished late last year and includes key projects and activities for further enhancement of the town for our residents and visitors over the next 10 years, subject to external funding. Llandudno is already a successful destination, but it is important that the town continues to adapt in order to be resilient and adaptable to future change. Consultation has been carried out during the production of the Llandudno 10-year plan. 67 stakeholders were interviewed, interviews were conducted, should I say, and the community consultation event was held in Venue Cymru. all 9 county councillors within the ward of Craggy-Don, Gogarth, Mostyn, Penryn, Tudno were asked for their views on the plan and were all supportive of formally adopting it. It is therefore my recommendation that we support option 2 outlined in the report, which is to adopt the Llandudno 10-year regeneration plan in order to attract funding and regeneration to Llandudno and future-proof the town. Thank you. I'm going to call again on Jasmine Ryan to present the report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Nigel. So yeah, as Councillor Nigel said, following successful funding from Welsh Government via Transforming Towns, we awarded a contract to produce a Llandudno 10-year regeneration plan. The aim of the plan is to create a reinvigorated Llandudno, which makes it a distinctive and desirable place in which to live, invest, do business and visit. As Councillor Nigel said, Llandudno is a popular place to live and a successful visitor destination already. But the key objective of the regeneration plan is to ensure Llandudno remains successful and enabling the town to be resilient and adaptable to future change and opportunity. So therefore it will build on the success of investment in the area and improve the offer in Llandudno for both residents and visitors. All towns have a place plan or are working towards a community/regeneration plan. And it's the regeneration plan we've got in Llandudno. The draft plan was finalised late last year and it contains a number of suggested projects in order to regenerate and future-proof Llandudno, subject to resources being identified. There are 5 regeneration principles identified within the plan. So these are maximise existing. So that's about making the most of the wealth of assets and features Llandudno already has. Extra Llandudno, which is about extending the season and increasing visitor length of stay. Elevating quality, which is about creating a baseline of enhanced quality to generate more visitors. Culture-led, which is capitalising on the richness of local culture, creativity and heritage. And change agents, which is about growing a network of relationships to facilitate collaboration. Projects contained within the plan report back to the Llandudno Regeneration Board. And in order to do this, we've created a smaller action group to drive forward key priority projects from the plan. The board will then be consulted on the order of priority projects for funding. So we are now looking for the plan to be formally adopted to support this piece of work and increase funding opportunities for local projects. And as Councillor Nigel said, Welsh Government has previously advised that for applications for funding to be supported from Welsh Government, they need to be part of a holistic placemaking plan or regeneration plan for a town centre and not supported as standalone projects. So we are proposing option 2, which is on page 136 in section 4 of your agenda packs.
Once again, thank you very much. I'll open up for any questions, but before I open up, I think I just want to point out and touch upon what you've said and what Councillor Nigel said with the consultation. I think you're to be applauded for, for the approach that we've taken with this report. We've consulted with Llandudno Town Council, the local area forum, Mostyn Estates, Llandudno Regeneration Board, the Hospitality Association, Destination Conwy Partnership Board, and community consultation at an event in Venue Cymru. So extensive consultation that's come into producing this 132-page report. So I thank you for that. If there's any questions, I've got Councillor Louise who would like to have a question.
Thanks. So we had a Llandudno Regeneration Board meeting this afternoon, and part of it was depressing because there's nothing going on at the moment. Well, there's bits and bobs, but it's bits and bobs. But what was positive about it was an update from Mostyn Estates about the amount of money being invested in the town on the seafront and changes on the high street. What did he say? The vacant rate was just under 5%, which is brilliant. So we have to hold on to the fact that Llandudno is an incredibly popular place. Yes, it does look a bit tired at the edges. Yes, we can provide a better visitor amenity, more toilets, Wi-Fi, etc. But I feel very hopeful because we've got some crazy ideas. I love the electric powered sea gliders to Liverpool and back, but within those crazy ideas is also really genuine projects. The issue obviously is the money. and then the time and capacity to do it. And that's why there was talk today about maybe not relying so much on the county and the county team, the county officers do everything, is working in partnership with private organisations. I know Moston Estates is unique, but there are other investors in Llandudno working with the town council who perhaps could do more and start filling in these prosperity fund forms rather than just doing the same thing they've done for the last 100 years. And I am trying with my town council hat to change that. And also with, community groups, friends groups, don't knock them. We're trying to get big money here. So we understand that we can't just say to the team, which today, Jasmine, was literally only you, go on and get this money for us. So I think there's loads more collaboration now. The action group's working well, and I feel really positive that we will go out and get this money and do it with the whole community together. So brilliant report.
Thank you very much for that. I've got Councillor Thomas Montgomery.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And Louise sort of said a lot of what I was going to say there, but I just wanted to stress again that I think Louise hit the nail on the head there about it's working with private business as well to achieve a lot of this. The part that really stood out to me was when we're talking about £500,000 for a land train between North and West Shore, and then linking it to a park and ride. I know there's already a land train that links North and West Shore, and last year when they set up, they already expressed interest in trying to put it down the prom as well. So I think some of the numbers in this report are really huge, but I think when we actually start to talk with the private sector that are already doing parts of this, Louise is right, we'll actually find that there are certain parts that won't cost us as much or make them easier than first appear. But yeah, my comment was just to say that I think it's a great report. It's great to see so much opportunity for Llandudno, but it is just talking about those time frames and drawing down and raising that money in the time frame that the report talks about. I can see some that are talking about £5 million projects starting next year possibly. So I think there's a lot of work to do there, but I think it's all very exciting. So yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So I don't see anybody else wanting to speak at the moment. So I'll bring Ellen in, but I think it's fair to say, there are plans for many areas in Conway, and so if anybody's just looking at this, they say, oh, it's just a plan for Llandudno, but I think most areas are going to have place plans, etc. So I just wanted to point that out, and perhaps I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, Ellen, or have I read your mind? I don't know.
Yes, you have, Mike. Diolch yn fawr, na i droi'r Gymraeg. Fi oedd yn bangio'r drwm pnawn 'ma hefo cynghorydd Louise yn yr bwrdd yn Llandudno yn deud fedrwn ni ddim gwneud hyn yn hunain, da ni angen partneriaid, da ni angen sector breifat, da ni angen Llywodraeth Cymru ac pob cyllidwr arall allan yna i ddilifro hwn lly. So, ond hefyd, be dwi eisiau gwneud y pwynt ydy hefyd, mae gennym ni 7 cynllun arall ar draws y sir o fewn trefi eraill, a beth da ni'n drio wneud fel tîm ydy gwneud yn sicr bod ni'n rhoid yr un sylw i bob un o'n trefi. Mae Llandudno'n un o'r prif drefi, dwi'n gwybod o ran twristiaeth, ond mae bob un tre yn heiddi y sylw heiddiannol yna. Felly, tîm bach da ni, ond mi newn ni'n gorau efo beth sgynnon ni ar draws y sir. Felly, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much for that. Small team that packs a mighty punch. Again, officers, thank you very much for the work that you've done on that. I've got Cabinet Member Gronwy wants to come in quickly.
And I welcome the report, and Llandudno is a very important part of Conway's infrastructure or Conway's attraction. But certainly as far as Llandudno, I would like to see both our AMs and MPs pushing for the Network Rail and the rail companies of this country to look at Llandudno again. We know the Virgin introduced a service that came into Llandudno, an awful lot of money was spent on the station. It's unfortunate that still most of the visitors are coming to Conway in by car or coach. So, it's vital looking to, carbon footprint and all these things that, that would be an ideal link into the middle of Llandudno. And I hope our MPs will take that seriously along with our AMs. Let's try and get a better service directly into Llandudno.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Gromley. Yeah, I was the chair of TIFE when the project for Llandudno railway station came about, and still the trains sort of finish at a certain time of the day, which is a little disappointing. Councillor Tom, was that an old hand that you've just taken down? Sorry, Chair. No, I did put my hand back. Yeah, if you want, do you want to come in or? Yes, please, if that's okay. Just a really quick one, just to try and build a bit more out on sort of time frames. What? Because I know it's a small team and there's a lot to do there, and I appreciate what we're saying, that there's other towns and areas that'll have a similar type of work done. But what do we expect to happen? You know, once this plan moves from us here and to the cabinet and so on and so forth, what is the plan once it's live and we say, okay, yeah, we're all happy with this? What's the plan there? Who's going to be the ones going out trying to draw down that money, trying to meet with the private sector about these different schemes? Because I'm just conscious that, you know, obviously, like we said, you know, it's a fairly small team and it's a big old county with a lot of projects. So yeah, if I could bring in Ellen, the officer, regarding that.
Yeah, well, I can't put a definitive time to it, I'm afraid, but, you know, Jasmine's already mentioned that there's been a small action group set up for the Llandudno regen plan to look at, and we have to prioritise the top 6, the ones that they have to be achievable, and also it's all very much dependent on funding as well. So, you know, it's a 10-year plan. We'd like to see things moving. Some things are already moving. We've been able to achieve some brilliant, the Visit Wales Brilliant Basics, to look at to work on the shelters on the front in Llandudno. So it's building on and on those types of schemes, really. But I can't tell you, I can't give you a definitive timeline, I'm afraid. It's very much dependent on, as Councillor Louise said right from the start, the money available to deliver these schemes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I feel having an adopted 10-year regeneration plan in place is certainly going to assist in looking at funding, what have you. So I've got no further questions. Can I need a proposer for, Dawn, if you'd like to come in, Dawn.
Yeah, can I just confirm that this plan doesn't need council approval? It will be a cabinet function. So recommendation 2.3, we can remove that.
Yeah, clarity on that. It will be going to cabinet.
It will go to cabinet. The monitoring officer has confirmed it's a cabinet function.
Yeah, that's fine. So in your report pack, you'll find the recommendations on page 135. Recommendation 2.3 says that council adopts a plan. That will not be the case. It will be cabinet adopt the plan. So could I have someone to propose? I've got Councillor Louise to second and Councillor Mandy, if you're seconding. All those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Abstentions? I think that's carried unanimous. So that's the end of the meeting. I'd like to close now and just thank everyone for participating tonight. Interesting agenda, and officers for attending. Thank you. Do you want to come in before we?
Yeah, can I just let you know that this was the first time Jasmine's been in the chamber, never mind presented. So I think she's done a sterling job, I would say. So.
Well done.
It most certainly did not show. So your reports, that's what makes it a little bit easier. You know, that they're really clear and well delivered. So thank you very much. So I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.